Okay, so we are going back to our last two projects that we did. If you remember, we had that error that was showing, which was telling us is not registered on our local machine. So what you simply need to do is you need to go to the Microsoft website and download a database engine or Microsoft Access database engine. You install it, and then you're just supposed to change a few things. I think I can put a link in the description of how you can actually get that done. But right now, let's just see the first a project that we had worked with, the one we were copying, and see how it was running. And then we'll tweak our own database, because we had done things in a slightly different way. So let's see how it runs now. I had actually just edited it so that it gives us what we need, but we're going to start from the onset. Okay, so as it stands, it tells us our database is connected, so we're good to go. And then here is our form. Here's what we see. So for example, if we click on load, we're supposed to see the items that are stored in this particular database. So what we're actually doing at this particular point is we're accessing the content that is in the database. We can also be able to add that information. Let's say, for example, we can see that these are computer accessories, so to speak. So let's say we want to put a printer. We then call it laser jet printer. We want the quantity to be 5. We want the price to be 180, like that. So I can click on save item. Okay. And then our printer is there. We can also add another value. Let's say we put it as tablet. Description, we say mobile technology. We also put a quantity, which is 6. We put a price, which is 130, something like that. So we save an item, it tells us successfully done, and we're good to go. Okay, so this is pretty much how this particular project is supposed to be running. Okay, so let's go into our project that we are cloning from this. We're going to be changing a few things like we said in the last project. Here's our project. Okay, so our project still has a bit of errors, but now it's at least working with that database that we've got. So if we start running it, we'll actually see that it tells us an error. Could not find that specific path. Because bear in mind, last time we actually said we're doing our code slightly differently. Okay, we can actually fix this error by doing the following. Okay, so maybe let me take note. It wants us to put in the bin release. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to my contents. We've got bin, we've got release. So here's where it wants this database to be stored. Okay, but before we get into putting that database there, let's see how it's actually getting to this path. Okay, when we come to our code, we've actually said the following. We want our connection to give us the provider, and our data source is supposed to be in our data directory. So we're just supposed to find a data directory, and we have contents.mdb. However, in our original code, we had it as follows. It was actually supposed to give us the full path, which was C, users, George, downloads, connect access, and then inventory, a access DB. So it's two slightly different ways of doing things. But in this particular case now, what we need to do now is we need to come back to our content. We need to copy our database, which is content, and we need to paste it in the release so that it works according to the data directory requirements. So I come and I paste there. Okay, after doing that, my project should now not give me a problem. Okay, like we see, we've got our content, and here's what we've got. Oh, I actually ran the old project. Sorry about that. We need to run this one. Let's run it. Okay, now it's telling us connection successful. Since we don't have anything in our database, it will not show us that information. So let's just try and see if we had actually done our project well. So let's say we want to put a printer, we want our quantity, which is 3, our price, which is 200, items in stock, we want there to be 0 when we do it. So we update, we load. Okay, so we actually hadn't put code for these. Okay, but at least our connection is now working. So let's actually now start working with the rest of the project, and we'll be explaining as we proceed, so that at least we are not in a slightly different scenario. Okay, so let's get to the old content, and then here's what we want to do. The first thing we want to do is we want to create our record. Okay, so I'll explain the code as it is, then we'll export it to the new project. Okay, so we want to load a record. So this will be our function called load record, where we want to try an SQL string, a command, a data table, our data adapter, and we want to open. Okay, what do each of these stand for? So our string pretty much gives us the location of a specific value. So it's as good as this particular SQL string, whereby we then want to be able to state what we want to be able to have. So for example, as you can see, we've declared it as a string there. Our string will then be select asterisk from TBL items. Okay, so we want to then say, if we want to select, we want to get all the contents from our specific table so that we can be able to use it. So that's what pretty much our string stands for. We've got a CMD, which is our OLE database command. We've actually used our command there, whereby we take our data adapter and our select command, and then we pass our command there, whereby we're saying all the contents that we've got in our command must be actioned out here. Okay, at the same time, we've got a data table, which simply means we are creating a virtual table that will be able to put information, and as soon as we are done, we commit to our database. Our data adapter, we have actually explained it in the previous content. And then the moment we have connection.open, it's a function that opens our connection so that we can be able to access our database. Then the last one is our da.fill, which simply fills our data table, and we can be able to view the contents within our data grid. However, if any of this does not work, we want to give the reason that it didn't work, and if everything works, we then close our connection. Okay, let's see if we had, okay, we had the same thing here where we simply changed it to call data, and this is what we had for call data. So what we were left with now was doing the individual buttons. Let's see what each button was called. Okay, we've got that, we've got that, we've got that. Perfect. So let's just double click so that we get into the button load. That's the first one. Let's double click again, we get to update. Let's double click again, we get to save. Let's double click again, we get to delete. Okay, So it then means we've got our button load, button update, button save, and button delete. Let's see what the previous code does. Okay. So for our button load, we just simply need to call this function. Let's come to what we call the function. We called it call data. So we simply need to call data like that. We make sure we put our bracket so that we know that it's a function that we're calling. And I'm sure if we run it now, we're supposed to get something, although it could be an error. Let's see. Perfect. It works because we at least had something in our database. So our call data now actually works, where it tells us the ID, the product name, the quantity, the price, and the items. So this is part of what our code is supposed to do. So in other words, in this particular instance, we have accessed our database. We've accessed the particular table that we have in question. We've also managed to make the first button work. So the next element would be to make our button update work, where we'll be able to do the following. Okay. So with these ones, I think I'll try and do everything step by step so that you can follow. I know in the last video, we didn't do it step by step. So some of you might have gotten lost somewhere along the lines. So we also want to have a try catch statement, which is as follows, which is this one. We want to catch exception. We want to end try. We also want to have a final. Okay. So let's come here and do the following. So we want to put try, T-R-Y, enter, and then we also want finally. Okay, like that. So each time we've got a try catch statement, we need this statement here where it gives us our message box. Okay. Maybe we can actually do it in a slightly different way. We can say message box dot show, right? So we want ex dot to string. Okay, that should work. Is that what we had previously? No, it says dot message. Okay, let's just put it as it is, dot message, like that, so that we get the same results. Okay, and then we want to be able to close our connection. I think that's what we've got. We also want to be able to load record. So I think we can do it this way. What was our connection? Our connection was Ole DB connection, and our function was call data. Okay, so Ole DB connection dot close, and then outside of that we want to be able to say call data. We want to be able to call our function call data. Okay, so in this particular case, here's what we've simply done. In our try catch statement, we've put the last section of it, whereby we want to have our message box, we want to have our connection to be closing, we want to have our call data, so that we can be able to see what is happening in our data grid. However, we still haven't put all the code that is required. So we'll be using this code step by step, and we'll see how it works. Okay, so some of these things will work more or less in the same way. I can pretty much copy this, although this won't work in our code since we've changed a couple of things. I will paste it there, but I'll comment it out so that it does not give us problems. Okay, so we put a comment, a comment, like that, so that we are going to use this as a reference point. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to have our connection to open, okay, which would be Ole DB connection dot open, like that. Okay, so we need to at least make sure that everything is exactly as it was. Okay, so we've also got an SQL where I think our SQL should be this one, which is our connection string. Okay, so we say connection string is equal to, okay, and then we need our command, which works with our connection. So our command in this case, we called it CMD, which is fine. So we'll then put it as CMD is equal to Ole. What is our command texts? Okay, our CMD. Oh, we actually, I made a mistake there. So we need our connection. It's supposed to be equal to Ole DB connection, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, because we are connecting this one. Okay, and then we want to have our SQL, which is our connection string, in the next line. So it's CMD dot command texts is equal to CONSTR, like that, which is our connection string. And then from there we then want to have the following. Okay, we want to have I don't see where we had actually declared I, so I think we might need to declare I. But so far we might actually leave this as it is. But we need to go back to our database and figure out what is where and how we'll put our connection string as follows. So this is what we now need to put in our connection string, where we'll also need to reference our database. Okay, so I'm forgetting what we had in our database. So we've got our product name, quantity, price, and items. Okay, that's our database side. Let's go to our interface side. Okay, this is txt product name, txt quantity, txt price, txt items. Okay, so we would want exactly the same content as we've got there, but we need to change it to suit our setup. Okay, so I'll paste it like that, but for us, I think this is txt product name. The next one should be txt product quantity. I think let's see, is that what comes next? Okay, so product name, quantity, price, and items in stock. Okay, the next one is txt quantity. No, the next one was actually txt price. And then the last one is txt quantity. No, txt items. Okay, so at least we know what those values are. But in this particular instance now, we want to be able to reference the same table that we've got there. So the table name is actually changing. It's not TBL items. It's actually TBL products like we've got there. So I'll copy that and I'll paste it on that particular instance so that it's TBL product. But now we then need to have these values being the same. So we need the database values, which is product name, quantity, price, and items. Okay, so let's put it this way. So this then becomes product name, this then becomes quantity. I think we named it as quantity. We named this one as price, and then the last one should be items. I don't know if that's what we've got here. Okay, items, like that, so that we've got our code as follows: connection string, insert into TBL products, product name, quantity, price, items, values. We want the product name, we want the quantity, we want the price, and the items. Okay, so these are the elements that we've got. I think from the looks of it, we've got everything in order. Let's just run it and see if we can get the result that we're hoping for. Just gonna put dummy stock. Let's go for update. Okay, it's not giving us an answer. Let's just wait for it. Maybe it's running in the background and it'll give us an error. But as it stands, we're supposed to get a result. Okay, no error, and it's not running. So there's got to be something missing in our code. So I just did this so that we could have a step-by-step process of how our project is supposed to work and where we get certain items or elements. So if you're also doing exactly the same thing, you'd actually find that in some cases you will get errors like this one, or you encounter errors like this one, where you've got your code in more or less in the same manner and it's actually not showing you errors. So you then now need to figure out where exactly your problem might be and how to actually address your problem so that your problem is not something that is continuous. Okay, so as at now, I think we can end our lesson, and we have successfully done certain things within this project, but we'll add some more content as we proceed so that we can be able to learn from this and develop something that is exactly like the one that we have seen, and hopefully be able to address certain elements in our own projects that we'll be working with.